I've spent a lot of time watching YouTube. I was never sure if making videos was something I wanted to do, as it seemed fun but required a lot of work and skill, and I also never really had the means. I've also never known what type of content I would make other than that it would be gaming related. Believe it or not, I'm something of a gamer myself and I do like me some video games. And looking at other creators' work, I wanted to be able to add something of my own to the space in the form of original content and ideas. Anyway, today I'm doing a top 10 video. So, I've been wanting to do a video like this for a long time, and I think this will be great for a first attempt at an original video that's not just funny clips of me playing stuff. Okay. The difference is, now it's unfunny because we're talking about opinions on the internet, and clearly you'll have to take them as 100% serious and a personal attack if I say something wrong. Since I'm now a certified old man at 20 years old, I thought it would be a high time to put this video idea to use. I'm going to be talking about which games are my favorites, so I'll mostly be singing each game's praises and not fully covering all the positives and negatives like if it were a normal review. Now, as a quick disclaimer, it was so hard to choose these because I have so many games that I just love and I'm horrible at making decisions and overall having opinions. Listen, 10 is such a small number and this was a bit difficult, alright? You know what? No, my opinions are actually awesome, and here's some testimony to back it up. Do you think I have good opinions?
Generally, yes.
I like the big generally and asterisks there. What's going on with that?
You know.
I really don't. That's why I asked.
You know, everybody is flawed, so to speak.
All right, that's enough out of you. All right. Would you say that I have good opinions on video games?
No, you don't like Pokemon Unite.
Do you think that I have generally good opinions on video games?
No? What the hell?
Do you think I have good opinions on video games generally?
No.
Do I have good opinions, or am I incredibly unbased?
All right.
Do
the logical steps?
If do I have a trustworthy opinion, like a trustworthy scientific opinion on video games?
So you came to me.
Yeah.
And your opinion was that I have a good opinion on your opinion.
Yes.
So, since my opinion is the best opinion, you agree with me.
Yeah.
So
I have good opinions. Let's fucking go.
The law of transitivity, or
I don't know what the fuck.
Law of transgenderism, but math.
Alright. Jokes aside, I've limited myself to only one game per any one series, mostly to have some variety and because it also helps me pick my favorites easier. Even so, don't be surprised if half of these rotate off the list in like a month when I change my mind. Speaking of opinions, this is only my own, so if I rank a game higher than you would, don't get your bleep blorps in a canache over some silly little floofy haired guy on the internet. We're all friends here, alright? Most of these picks are just nostalgia anyway. Although, please do let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what your favorite games are, and maybe I'll play some of them sometime. And without further ado, let's jump right on into... Y'all ever eject a sticky substance at people for sport? You know, it's a bit surprising to me that this one made it in the top 10. I think it's because this was my introduction to Splatoon, and it holds a lot of the aforementioned nostalgia, even though it wasn't released very long ago. Wait, 2017? That's like 5 years ago. Oh my god. I distinctly remember being hyped to try out the first Splatfest before launch, having missed the test fire earlier that year, and being immediately hooked and playing the whole 4 hours even though I didn't mean to the point where my mom was getting annoyed with me because she wanted to leave and run important errands. But no, I made sure that I stood in front of that TV, glued to the screen up until the last second. Suffice to say, I bought the game on launch day, and I've been in love ever since. Before I start talking about this game, keep in mind that this is coming from the perspective of someone who's only played this one and not the original, so I'm probably going to phrase things as if this is the first game in the series. That being said, this game is simply a joy to play. It's such a unique concept with wonderful execution, and the style and world building are so cool. It's such a perfect Nintendo way of adding a shooter to their lineup of different genres. Making something as simple yet fun as covering the turf in your ink the main focus as opposed to shooting other players while still making that important as well is something that elevates the core gameplay. It makes it so that if players aren't exactly the best at aiming and splatting players, they can still help the team and feel good playing. That unique gameplay also leads to a bunch of different cool scenarios, like being able to sneak up behind someone in the ink and shoot them, or covering a certain pathway in your own ink so that the enemy team has a harder time trying to get to you while you're pushing somewhere else. The other modes are awesome and make good use of this too, especially the Salmon Run as a new Horde style mode, which is really cool, as well as the single player campaign, which is a fantastic and creative way to show new players the ropes and what the game can do. I just wish that it would be a bit easier to access the other modes more often rather than having them be locked behind a silly 2-hour long rotation as well as some only being ranked modes. And of course it is annoying when they stop you at the beginning of the game every time to tell you about it. The main reason I think that this game is important to me though is the timing of its, and subsequently its DLC's release. It was one of the earliest games I got for my Nintendo Switch, and it came out during the summer, which of course meant I had plenty of time to play it. A fond memory I have of that time is when it was launch day and everyone in every multiplayer lobby had no gear and the same weapon. It was so funny and a great time. I also met a bunch of amazing people through newly joining the community, and it was so fun waiting for new updates and discussing them with friends. When the Octo expansion suddenly dropped after months of them not telling us the release date, it was simply euphoric. The DLC was so much fun and well built with challenging levels and added so much to the lore I couldn't have been happier. After looking back, Splatoon 2 had a much bigger impact on me than I originally realized, and I can't be more hyped for Splatoon 3. Two games were released right at the start of the 2020 quarantine at the exact same time. Both I love, but only one made the list. One was about a greedy demon corporation taking over that you alone must battle for all time. And the other was Doom Eternal. Hey guys, isn't it so cool how the soundtrack I bought came with a free game? Right guys? Ha! Ha ha! Remember the thing I said about having original ideas? Well, anyway, in all seriousness, this is one of the most polished games I've ever played. Once I got the chance to play through Dude 2016 for the first time, I liked it a lot, and became very excited for the next game in the series that at the time was already teased to us. When it released, I had decided to pre-order it on PC, which is funny, because at the time my crappy old computer was having audio problems, meaning I played the whole game in silence. Yeah. Luckily, that got fixed soon, so I was able to replay it with sound. What I'm getting at is, when I was first playing, I noticed that the game ran super smoothly and was highly customizable, even on that old PC that had a bad, outdated graphics card. Those devs really knew how to condense and optimize the game and just make it a super smooth and beautiful looking experience. All this, and I haven't even talked about the gameplay. They made a perfect sequel, in my opinion, at least in terms of the campaign. Eternal took all the good stuff about 2016 and just made it better, and took all the bad stuff and ironed it out. The game is longer, feels more grand, has a much more unique style, and many awesome locations to explore. The variety of weapons and tools at your disposal is so fun to play around with, and works perfectly alongside the bigger number of unique demons, each with their own weaknesses. It's so interesting during a large battle when trying to decide which demon to focus on first and how. I'm also a sucker for platforming, and the way the Doomslayer swings around, dashes, and claws his way up walls feels great as well. Something else that I love about this game is that for those who are interested, there are lots of collectibles and codexes to find that tells you even more about the lore of the Doom universe. But if you don't care much about the story, that's alright too. It's unobtrusive and you can just skip through it and have a great time all the same. That feeling you get during this game, the power trip of ripping and tearing through the armies of hell, it's like no other shooter campaign. It's incredible. In terms of other content, I had never gotten to play the multiplayer of Doom 2016, so I can't compare it to that, but the battle mode was definitely a cool multiplayer mode added in Eternal that I definitely had a bit of fun with, and the Horde mode added later was a great addition as well. As with all the games on this list, if you haven't picked this one up and at some point get the chance to, even if you're waiting for a sale, don't hesitate. It's worth your time. There's a colorful multiplayer game that takes place in space with a bunch of astronauts that's been gaining a bit of popularity recently, and for good reason. I think it's great, so it has made the list at number 8. Damn, second fake out in a row, I'm on a roll! Anyway, this game is just a vibe, that's all. One of the main reasons this one made it onto the list is probably nostalgia, but as I stated before, I don't care. The quiet and mysterious atmosphere and unique graphical style of this game is just so jaw-dropping to me, and the music especially lends to that greatly. Here's a quick example of what I mean with one of my favorite tracks from the game. Continuing on, the gameplay is so unique and interesting as well. The many distinct planets you can travel to are able to be reshaped to your liking, using a very creative terraforming style that I've never seen in any other game. Exploring underground or above ground are both super interesting due to each planet having all kinds of different formations and landscapes. Furthermore, the way the inventory system and building work is also super unique and satisfying, and just feeds into that same creativity aspect as well, as it's very modular and can be moved around to fit however you like. The game also lends super well to multiplayer. Being able to have multiple friends messing around with you in terraforming can lead to some great moments and shenanigans using the many multiplayer items the devs implemented, or at the very least, getting progress made twice as fast. The story of this game is virtually non-existent until a huge twist at the end, which I won't spoil of course, but that's really interesting as well. This is a game that I love to boot up once in a while to just chill out and have a good time. Did you know that if a 25-ton piece of metal were to fall from the sky and hit the ground at maximum velocity, it would not only be immediately crushed and create a crater about 10 meters wide, but if it happened to contain some sort of miniaturized nuclear power source, it would also level any structures in over a mile radius? Anyway, this is how you make a AAA multiplayer shooter. Cool concept, incredibly well executed, content rich, and continued support after launch. Well, continued support for a little while after launch. Well, we'll get to that later. Let's touch on the campaign first. It's a wonderful introduction to the game and the futuristic universe it's set in, with a simple yet effective story. The concept of being able to pilot a giant mech suit capable of tearing through the enemy is awesome, but this campaign brings it to a whole new level. Of course, through it you're taught how the incredible movement system of this game works due to the use of many interesting set pieces and great level designs, but you're also shown how a pilot and their Titan bond to form a perfect team that can overcome any problem. Each level is memorable and unique, and many have a fun gimmick or objective that spices up the gameplay even more. Tie this in with great writing and characters, and this has got to be one of the best shooter campaigns I've ever played, even close to matching that of Doom Eternal. But what sets this game ahead of Doom for me is that single player is only half of the package. The multiplayer of this game is just something else. Flying around the map at Mach 20 while gunning down other people doing the same thing is just euphoric and it never gets old. The feeling of being a super soldier able to easily outclass the average grunt matches perfectly with the huge mech stomping around. Even though pilots can be killed in just a hit or two by Titans, they're fast and slippery while Titans are slow and bulky, creating a fun balance with massive replayability. The variety of unique guns and modes in this game are mostly well balanced and also lend to me always wanting to come back for more, even after hundreds of hours. Unfortunately, as I alluded to earlier, the multiplayer of this game is currently unplayable due to a multitude of reasons, and the devs seem to either not care or are unable to fix the problem. Don't get me wrong, I obviously love their current game, Apex Legends, but I'm disappointed with the lack of attention to anything else, even though there's some serious problems with Apex as well. Hopefully something is done about the Titanfall server issue in the future, but for now, I suggest looking into the Northstar mod, which is an easy-to-install custom server and custom game mode client built by fans. It's a really awesome initiative, and I highly recommend checking it out, but even if you're not interested in the multiplayer, the single player alone is worth playing if you can get the game for sale on Steam. Just trust me. Listen, I get it, you're meant to suspend disbelief when watching or playing any type of semi-realistic sci-fi story, and that's all well and good. But it's always bugged me that the reality-bending wormholes you use in this game are more realistic than those stinking boots that can get rid of, like, all momentum with no damage to the wearer when hitting the ground. Like, come on! How does this even work? How? Man, a lot of shooters on this list, huh? Well, this is the last one, promise. Plus, can I even compare this to other shooters? It's a puzzle game, and one of the most creative and well-polished games I've ever seen. Coming off of a great first game, this one is what I'd call a perfect sequel, as the second game takes everything that made the first one good and expands on it, changes it for the better, and adds a lot of new things as well. More puzzle elements, more test chambers, more characters, more story, more modes, more content. Games just aren't made like this anymore. Well, not often at least. I would say my personal favorite part of the game is its story. It has a dark premise and lore while managing to be incredibly well written and very funny, and it just works.
Most test subjects do experience some cognitive deterioration after a few months in suspension. Now, you've been under for quite a lot longer, and it's not out of the question that you might have a very minor case of serious brain damage. But don't be alarmed, all right? Although if you do feel alarmed, try to hold on to that feeling, because that is the proper reaction to being told that you've got brain damage.
This isn't to say that the story outweighs any other aspects of the game, of course, as it's all very well made. The gameplay is definitely a close second for me, as there is not a single puzzle that feels too hard or annoying, and stringing a bunch of different elements together to complete each one is always so satisfying. The great puzzles are made better by the stellar graphics and aesthetic of each area too, from the beautiful overgrown ruins of the first game chambers, to the old-timey aesthetics of old Aperture, to the polished and subsequently falling apart look of new Aperture. I'm definitely a sucker for overgrown ruins and similar aesthetics, so a lot of these areas in the game definitely appeal to me. The fantastic score aids the game in this department as well, adding to the grander scale and sometimes the feeling of isolation or destruction. I actually cannot think of a single thing wrong or poorly done in this game. The game is a masterpiece. It's simply a pleasure from start to finish, and it only gets better on replay. It's no wonder that this is the highest rated game on Steam. We're halfway home. Wait a minute. I just called the last game a perfect masterpiece, and we're only on number 5? Damn. I'm not saying the games from here on out aren't masterpieces, but I'd also say that most of them are more fueled by nostalgia than my unbiased opinion. This also means that the gushing is going to get even worse. I'll still do my best to look at them objectively and acknowledge their flaws, if I can, though. That being said... I'm not normally an RPG guy. I don't know, some I clearly really like, and others I only feel like playing once in a while. I don't know what it is about Pokemon, but I can never get enough. And of course, I couldn't have my Pokemon game pick be lower than top 5. This one is probably not the best Pokemon game. If I was speaking more in terms of what I think the best Pokemon games are, it would probably be Gen 5, but like I said, I've got some pretty thick nostalgia goggles on when speaking about my personal favorite. Gen 4 was my first introduction to the games, and Platinum was the first Pokemon game I've ever beaten. Even though I said this isn't necessarily the best Pokemon game, it's still a damn good one, and I love a lot of the designs of Pokemon and areas in this generation, and this game is jam-packed with improvements from the original incomplete games that it's based on, making this the true, definitive way to experience the Sinnoh region and its story. If only this generation ever got the proper remake it deserved. But that's a rant for another time. Sinnoh is definitely one of, if not my favorite region for a multitude of reasons. Compared to other games, it has the least water routes and desert-type areas, and the most grassy or foresty areas, which I personally prefer. There are several dungeon-like areas, most notably Mount Cornet, and you wrap around the region in a non-linear feeling path with complex and secret-riddled routes that don't just feel like a straight line. The story is simple, but much improved over the original Gen 4 games. The way they added more character to Cyrus and how he decides to stay in the distortion world after being sucked in by Giratina is really cool. There's also a lot to do other than the main story, which is nice. Things like Pokemon contests and the Battle Frontier, and a fair amount of post-game to explore. People always complain about the slowness of this generation, and this game improved that a bit over the original games as well, but honestly, I never minded. It matches the music and the beautiful pixel art style to feel calm and relaxing, thoughtful, and somewhat mysterious in some areas. It's just so comforting to me, I guess. I find myself coming back to this game once in a while, just to look at my old save file, or to enjoy the music. This game is important to me. It's one of the first games I got on one of my first game systems, the Nintendo DSi, which I bought with my own saved up money from working around the house as a kid. Anyway, Pokemon is a series that is near and dear to me, and I hope to see it regain this level of quality and care in the future. It had better, because there really aren't any RPGs that I'm super invested in. Well, actually, scratch that. There is only one other RPG that I like more than Pokemon. I think if you know me well, you'll be able to guess, and even if you don't, this is a pretty cliche game to put into a top 10 games type of list. But I don't care! This game's amazing! Oh my god! I have never cried over a game, is what I would have said if I hadn't played this one. Man, I really need to play more indie games. Anyway, What can I say about Undertale that hasn't already been said? The game is popular for a reason. When I originally bought the game, I had no idea what it was about, other than how the choices you make affect the story. I'm going to do my best to avoid spoilers here for those who haven't played, but honestly this game is best played while knowing as little about it as possible, so proceed at your own risk. You can skip to the next number on the list by clicking the next chapter at the bottom of the video window, but be sure to come back when you've played it, alright? Everyone gone? Good. Anyway, something I didn't know about was the extent to which the game takes the whole choices affecting things. Like, it remembers everything. Even if you do something wrong and, like, go back to a previous save, it'll allude to you doing that when you retry, or sometimes going back won't even matter at all. The game is somewhat short and sweet, but it's packed with so much love and care and heart. In every battle, you have the choice to fight or spare every monster that attacks you. Through that system and lots of secrets to find, it lends to a lot of replayability. The RPG gameplay is also super fun and unique, as when the enemy attacks you, you can try to dodge it using your soul in a bullet hell style. This, in combination with all the different ways to figure out how to spare enemies, lends to a lot of fun gameplay variety in the combat of the game. But of course, where the game's true strength lies is its story, and the music supporting that. It's just so powerful, the characters are likable, and the lore behind the game is super mysterious and interesting to theorize about. The game's hilarious and incredibly well written, and the music is some of the greatest I've ever heard. Of course, like I mentioned, I played this game at a great time, because it had just come out on Switch, and I knew it was popular, but had not really known anything else, and the spotlight had died down on it, so I wasn't spoiled. I actually played the neutral route, but midway through, after meeting the characters and seeing that they're not just mindless monsters, I immediately went back and did Pacifist. The story was simply jaw-dropping for such a simple-looking game, especially toward the end if you do true Pacifist, and even though I wanted to try out the genocide route, when Flowey pleads with you to let them be, I did. Because I just couldn't do it. I wanted to let them have that future that I made for them. I'd only known these characters for a few hours and they already meant so much to me. I wanted them to have the future that they've always wanted because I let them. I didn't want to ruin it. I did watch someone play Genocide later on though. Genocide is horrifyingly brilliant and really makes you feel bad, which is interesting, but there's no way I could beat the final boss. Anyway, I'm super excited to see what happens next with the sequel, spinoff. Well, whatever it is, I've loved what we've seen so far for Deltarune, and I'm hyped for the finished game. It may even make it onto this list in the future, depending on how it turns out. You know, there's a distinct lack of open-world action-adventure games in this video. Can you believe that this game was the first true open-world game that Nintendo ever made? It's just like, wow. For a first try, this game is amazing. This is also the first Zelda game I ever beat, so that's cool too. This game was a perfect launch title for the Nintendo Switch. It offers hours and hours of gameplay, and when I first got my Switch a month or two after launch, I had all the time to play it, being a freshman in high school. I'm hundreds of hours into the game now, but I've still got more to do, and I haven't even found everything it has to offer. This game is simply brilliant in almost every aspect. The graphics are gorgeous, the world design is wonderful, and the music is awe-inspiring. The gameplay is so tightly polished and fleshed out too. There were almost 0 times while playing that I was not having fun. Around every corner is something to discover, every combat scenario is unique, you're completely and truly free to carve your own path, and the story the game tells is simple but effective. The tools you're given at the start work so well with the game engine and the environment, which allows for pretty much anything you can think of to be possible. There are some areas of the game that aren't perfect, like I alluded to earlier, but the good things of this game massively outweigh the bad. And my nostalgia goggles are strong, of course. As I stated before, I love the ruins of a time past aesthetic, so of course I fell in love with all the areas in this game really quick, as it is basically the entire premise. Everything feels so calm and contemplative, which adds to the sadness but also the beauty of the world destroyed by an evil long ago. The whole game is just breathtaking. Sometimes I just stand around and listen to the music and the ambience and take it all in, thinking about a simpler time. I'm so tired, man. I can't believe a game as astounding as this is getting a sequel. I can't be more excited to see what it's like, as it looks super promising so far. Well, here's to the future. There are only 2 games which I consider infinitely replayable, at least for me, And that's only scratching the surface. Haha, wink. This is the very first PC game that I ever bought. Truly a steal at $10. What's crazy is, the game wasn't even finished at that point, and still technically isn't. There was no petting the cat, there was no master mode, there wasn't even a final boss yet. But it was still an incredible game, and has obviously only gotten better since. Where do I even start? The pixel art style of the game is gorgeous, and everything in the game fits together to make a cohesive style, and the music works so well with that style to make it all that much better. The music, man, the music! It's so hard to even pin down what genre it is. It's very unique and mystical. And just like the music, the game itself never gets old somehow. The progression is so well done for an open sandbox game, but never gets stale because of the fact that it's open and different enough every time you play. There's not a single area of this game that isn't fleshed out or fun, from the building to the combat to the exploration and the customization. There's so many different enemies to fight and over 20 unique bosses to challenge as well, and each one feels fun and fair to fight. The game is also packed with Easter eggs and references, like costumes you can wear and certain weapons too. There's even side things to do like golf and the bestiary, and even the portal gun is in the game to mess around with. It's insane the amount of love and care that's been put into this game over the years, and is still being put into it now even though they keep saying each update is the quote-unquote last one. Like, they even made the mod launcher of the game officially downloadable, which only adds to the content and longevity of it. This game is truly a masterpiece of art, and one that I've played for nearly 10 years, longer than almost any other. There is only one more game that I hold in higher regard, and if you know me well, then it should be pretty obvious. Hell, it should be very obvious already considering I have Terraria as number 2. But wait, time for our lightning round of honorable mentions. Some of these games are really hard to drop from the list, so I couldn't just leave them out of the video. Let's start with Super Mario Odyssey. This game is a joy to play through for the first time. Each new world holds many challenges and secrets to get the main collectible, all with very polished and tight platforming controls. The moves you can pull off are crazy. Super Mario Galaxy. This game was pretty close to making the list for the music alone. An incredible display of creativity and simple platformer fun. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I love Kirby games, and for the first 3D mainline Kirby platformer, they killed it. This game is awesome, although I'm not sure yet if it beats my favorite Kirby game, Kirby Planet Robobot. This game is packed with charm, fan service, and great gameplay. I love the aesthetic and the unique story as well. Deltarune. The game is only 2 chapters in out of 7 and it's already showing massive promise. The writing is great and the gameplay is fun as ever. Pokemon, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver. This is the definition of an awesome Pokemon remake. There is so much content here, and of course nostalgia is a big factor for me here as well. But oh my gosh, if you're a Pokemon fan, you need to play these. Batman, Arkham City. This is how you make a superhero game. Good story, fun gameplay, great visuals, music, and extra content. The game really makes you feel like Batman. Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, a wonderful collection of 4 awesome indie platformers with beautiful art. Celeste, ditto. I love the art style of this game even more, and the unique platforming challenges and iterations on the gameplay make this one a wonderful package. Apex Legends, the best battle royale by far. Lots of continued content, super fun gameplay and background story, and just a really unique take on the genre. Subnautica. This game was not meant to be a horror game, but it is, and that's awesome. The premise, story, and lore is also super interesting and original. The gameplay is fantastic too, of course. Metroid Dread. This is a great return to form for the series, featuring awesome gameplay, visuals, and story. It's very polished, and the difficulty feels just right, being hard but not too frustrating. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This game is packed with content, looks gorgeous, and has super fun gameplay that always keeps me coming back. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The definitive Smash Bros. Game. So many awesome characters that have been requested by fans for years and some incredible crossovers even from other game companies. The gameplay feels so good and well balanced between casual and competitive, and there's hours and hours of single player content and bonus content to be had as well. There's so many awesome games I want to talk about and give the spotlight, but I think I've covered everything I can in this video. Well, everything except one. I don't know what to say. I can't find the proper words. But I think you'll understand.